We're now going to be joined by Jacob Kirkegaard, Senior Fellow, Peterson Institute, International Economics, for more on what this is going to mean to the rest of Europe. Well, first of all, is this a surprise to you?
No, not really. I mean, it's very clear that if you're a president and your approval rating is 17%, you got to do something. And in this case, when his cabinet members, Armand Montebourg and others, clearly openly rebelled against him, he had to act presidential. And the way you do that in France is you fire the government and you bring somebody new in.
All right, you're saying it very politely. This is about politics. This is not about the austerity measure. This isn't about becoming more German. This isn't about anything else structural at this time.
Well, it is about the economy as well, because I mean, it is a genuine political debate whether or not France needs to actually implement the 50 billion euros in cuts that François Hollande announced earlier this year. That's what it's really politically about, is about where are these cuts going to come from? Should they be done at all or not? The left wing in the François Hollande's party says no, doing so will be crazy. And whereas on the other hand, Germany and the EU says, no, you had to do it. You promised to do it.
You promised to do it. You need to. What happens if they go, look, we changed our mind. We're not going to do the austerity?
Well, in principle, 2 years down the road, if they still haven't done it, they could be heavily fined to the tune of 0.5% of GDP, meaning tens of billions of euros.
Who's fining them?
The EU.
The EU.
But in reality, what it would do is that it would unravel the political agreement in Europe of basically sticking to the rules. And it would also mean that, for instance, the ECB would find it very difficult to continue its easy monetary policy.
Well, nothing they do would mean anything because no one has to follow by the rules. I mean, it sets a bad example for Greece. It sets a bad example for Italy, Portugal. You named a country, they're going to say, look what France did. They promised they were going to do it. They didn't do it. The implications longer term to Europe here, what does France need to do to restore sort of that credibility and confidence? Because a lot of people are watching this very closely.
Well, basically, in my opinion, François Hollande has got no other choice than to stick with this. And that's what his reshuffle ultimately reflects, is that he's going to ditch the people that disagree with him, the team of rivals, so to speak. Doesn't really work in a French political setting. And he's going to set a new team that basically believes in these austerity measures. Because the reality is that he needs to generate confidence among not least the French private sector. And they have been looking at his government and they've been saying, well, look, we don't know where these 50 billion cuts are going to come from. We need someone who does what he says.
One thing that's been frustrating for Europe and for a lot of us who, if you've been watching this show, you know we've talked about the unemployment rate at length. France is no different. Owen was talking about the unemployment rate in France. How much of a factor did that play, you think, in terms of popularity and dealing with the serious issue of unemployment, especially among youths, which there seems to be no solution for that?
Well, François Hollande has painted himself up into a political corner because he cavalierly last year said, I'm going to break the unemployment curve and it's going to be going downhill in terms of unemployment. The opposite happened. So, of course, he's very vulnerable to this, not least because the kind of reforms that France needs to make happen, meaning liberalizing, making it easier to hire and fire workers in France to energize the labor market, is precisely the kind of reforms that Hollande's own party, the Socialist Party, are dead set against. So he doesn't have the support of his own party for the policies that he needs to implement.
Is this Hollande's last stand? I mean, if this doesn't work, his approval rating's in the tank. They're trying to do austerity, which they can't seem to do. He can't get people to agree. He can't do anything. It sounds like Washington, D.C. sometimes. Is this the last salvo? If he can't do it, does he have to go too?
No, I don't think he will go. But I think if this doesn't work, if this new team does not deliver, I don't think François Hollande will be running for re-election in 2017.
Because?
Well, because his approval rating is 17%, it would be a disaster. He probably wouldn't even make the second round. He would probably lose out to Marine Le Pen.
Very quickly, what's all this talk about France becoming more like Germany? I mean, I think there's some jokes that are going around about it, but it's also a very serious thing. Germany wants them to make the cuts. France is on the fence right now. Is this, again, more politics, or is something real here?
No, this is very real. I mean, it's also that traditionally the European Union was built on rough parity between France and Germany. Well, that doesn't happen anymore because Germany is so clearly this sort of older brother. France is economically and therefore politically in the doldrums. And until France gets back to its feet, so to speak, the sort of parity between France and Germany within the EU cannot happen again. And that ultimately unsettles the European Union and makes it very difficult for Europe as a whole to progress. Because at the end of the day, we need France and Germany to strike a compromise. And you can't do that if one country is so much stronger than the other.
And if you want this country and France in particular to lead, they got to get their own house in order first. Otherwise, other countries simply won't follow.
Absolutely.
Jacob, great to see you. Thank you very much for the lesson in French politics.